Good afternoon. My name is Roxanne Whitbeck. I'm the Director of Veteran Services for the town of Plymouth. This Veterans Day, we're planning a welcome home ceremony for our Vietnam veterans in conjunction with our Veterans Day ceremony. Here with me today, I have Brian Sullivan, who was a first lieutenant who served boots on ground in Vietnam. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Could you tell us a little bit about your service, please?
Specifically the Vietnam service.
Sure.
I went to Vietnam in October of 1970. My fourth child was born my second or third day in country.
Boy.
I was assigned as a first lieutenant in the 127th Military Police Company in Quy Nhon, Vietnam. Performed that function as a platoon leader for about 3 or 4 months. And then there was a captain who was rotated home, who was the adjutant of the battalion headquarters, which was also in Quy Nhon, the 93rd Military Police Battalion. So I became the adjutant, kind of the chief administrative officer for a couple of months. And then became the S2, the intelligence officer, for the remainder of my tour. I left in July of 1971, got a drop to take a maximum confinement prisoner shipment back through the Presidio in San Francisco to the castle at Fort Leavenworth.
So your total time spent in Vietnam was how long?
9 months.
9 months. It's a long time. How did you come up with the idea of the 50th anniversary commemoration?
Well, I attend a weekly PTSD work group at the Brockton VA, and my whole Vietnam experience really means a lot to me.
Of course.
It's amazing how 9 months of your life can become such a seminal experience for your whole life.
Right.
I mean, I'm 70 years old now, but that 9 months had such an impact.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I was reading the VFW magazine one day, and they were talking about the commemorative partnership program with the Department of Defense, the Office of Commemorations, for the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. I thought that what a great place it would be to have a ceremony, a welcome home for Vietnam veterans, in Plymouth's, America's hometown.
America's hometown.
So as you know, I got together with you, and we got the committee together, and it grew from there.
And we have established quite a committee which seems to grow every month. Would you like to talk a little bit about what the committee does and what our goal is?
Yeah, you know, it's almost similar to my PTSD work group. We've got a number of Vietnam veterans. Mm-hmm. We've got some Vietnam era veterans who sit on the work group. They all had very similar experiences when coming home from the war.
Right.
Either they were ignored or they were insulted,
Right.
degraded. In a sense, we all feel that probably the benefit from that experience is that we paid the price forward for today's veterans, who are given the respect they deserve when they come home from conflicts. Right. In our case, we had a lot of people who were dead set against the war and our policy in the war, mm-hmm. and that's understandable. What's not understandable is to take that out on the soldiers who are on line and the soldiers who serve. So many of the veterans, when they came home, never received the welcome home they received, and for the town of Plymouth to be now providing that for the Vietnam veterans. I've seen some of the guys that we have spoken to about this program, their eyes have watered. It strikes a chord with them, because to finally receive the welcome home after all these years is really meaningful to them.
Ugh. And I got to tell you, it's such an honor to be part of the committee. So far, we have approximately 85 veterans who have who wish to participate. Does that number surprise you at all?
You know, it's funny. Initially, I was concerned because a lot of Vietnam veterans don't like to talk about their experience.
Right.
Not only just the experience of war, but the degradation they received when they got home. You know, weighs heavy on their mind. And sometimes, you know, it's like you got to be concerned about them coming out of their shell. On the other hand, to think that we have 80 or 85 DD-214s in for Vietnam veterans who are either from Plymouth,
Right.
or went into the war from Plymouth,
Right.
or are members of Plymouth-based veterans groups,
Right. Or who currently live in Plymouth
or
now.
currently live in Plymouth and are Vietnam
Right.
veterans. To think that we've got 85 DD Form 214s, it really pleases me. And I think what it is these folks have just been waiting for a long time for someone to say, thanks for what you did.
Right, exactly. And we're going to be taking DD-214s up until September 1st. So if you're interested or you know a Vietnam veteran that might be interested, please direct them down to the Veteran Service Office at 44 Nook Road, and we'll take a copy and give them the details of the ceremony. Talk about the ceremony a little bit, Brian. Some of the things that we're going to be doing is the challenge coin, which I think is going to be a really nice tribute to the veterans, and I think it's very specific to Plymouth. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the challenge coin is particularly unique. Those folks who are in the military are familiar with the concept of a challenge coin.
Sure.
And what it is it's a heavy coin, heavier than a silver dollar,
Right.
kind of thick, and it's a commemorative coin. And what was developed for the boots on the ground veterans was a challenge coin that on one side says basically the welcome home and has the Vietnam campaign ribbon on it.
Right.
But on the reverse, it has a replica of the Mayflower with the blue sky and sea behind it.
Right.
So for Plymouth-based Vietnam veterans to receive that challenge coin is really significant. Now the commemorative program, the Department of Defense, they're not involved with this.
No,
This is a
no.
gift from
Right.
the town of Plymouth
That's correct.
to its Vietnam veterans.
Right, that's correct. Thank you for pointing that
So
out.
that is very, very special.
Right.
Now, in addition, we have the Vietnam era lapel pin, the bronze
Right.
lapel pin,
That's
which
correct.
was provided by the Commemorative Partnership Program. And that pin will be presented not only to the Vietnam veterans, but also to the Vietnam era veterans,
That's correct.
which, you know, we should do a shout out to the Vietnam era veterans.
Absolutely.
Because they weren't thought of real kindly for their service either. They weren't given the respect that they deserved in the various theaters that they performed in. So it's an opportunity for us to not only recognize the boots on the ground Vietnam veterans, but also to give a shout out to the Vietnam era veterans.
Correct, I agree. The other thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be having a luncheon after the ceremony, which we are hoping will be a nice little thank you also. Brian, my hopes are that the ceremony will encourage other communities across the state and even the nation to participate. Do you feel that this ceremony will stimulate people to remember?
Yeah, I do, because I've seen you know, some ceremonies that have already been conducted. This commemorative period is actually for the same duration as the Vietnam War, so it's like a 12-year exercise.
Right.
So some towns have conducted welcome home ceremonies, but remember, what the commemorative program presents is the bronze lapel pin. Taking the step further to give the challenge coin, that's really impressive. And I think that you're going to see other towns, when we get more and more publicity about our program, when they see America's hometown do it and do it right like we're doing it now, yeah, I do think it's going to catch on. I think that's going to cause more people. As a matter of fact, I think you mentioned to me that you had a meeting recently of veterans agents from the
Right.
different towns.
Right.
And they were all asking you, well, geez, you know, we've
Yeah,
seen this, we've seen that.
right.
How are you going about it? So, yeah, I think it'll catch on.
I hope so. I think it's really important to remember and never forget the sacrifice. And you know, war is hard, and it's Nobody wants to go.
War is even harder when you're not appreciated.
Right. I can't even imagine. Our ceremony will be held at Memorial Hall, which is where we house a one-of-a-kind memorial for our Vietnam veterans and veterans of our current conflict since 9/11. We have 4 Vietnam veterans that were killed in action and 7 for the current conflict. Upon entering the hall, one views their uniforms on life-size mannequins. The hall can be opened on request, and if anyone's interested in viewing the memorial, they can call my office at 508-747-1620. My extension's 173, and we'll provide you with the contact information so that you could go down there and view the memorial. Brian, we're going to make a special invitation to the Vietnam Gold Star families. How do you think that their presence, or how do you think that they'll impact the ceremony?
I lost a soldier when I was in Vietnam, and I tried to mention that during the Memorial Day presentation I did recently, and it was very difficult to do that. I broke down a little bit on the stage.
All these years later, it's still so fresh.
Oh yeah. So I guess in relating this to the Gold Star families, particularly the mothers, I'd have to go back to my own experience a little bit. When I left for Vietnam, my father wanted me to try to use some political connections that we had in the family. Speaker of the House McCormick was related to us on my mother's side. And I would have none of that. And my mother, who was a former Marine, she would have none of that.
That's awesome.
So my mother, my father wasn't too happy with her. And my mother had to live with that decision for the 9 months that I was in Vietnam. And as I told you, I left in October, shortly before my birthday. And I can remember the night before I left, we had a little birthday thing, and my mother came outside as I was getting ready to leave and just put her hands on my face and said, softy as, please be careful. So my mother lived with that decision and that anguish, I guess, for the 9 months that I served. You have a son now that's going to be deployed.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what goes through a mother's heart. Not to have someone show up at your door and tell you that your child has sacrificed their life. I can't imagine the pain. So having the Gold Star mothers there to provide a challenge coin perhaps to them in recognition of the sacrifice their son made during the Vietnam conflict, it adds a solemnity to it. It adds a heart, meaning, deep feeling. So I think that's what it's going to bring to the celebration.
So well spoken. Thank you, Brian. There are many veterans who unfortunately have passed away from diseases caused by Agent Orange exposure. We would like them to know, we'd like their families to know, or surviving spouses, children, that they are more than welcome to attend this ceremony. The only thing that we would need is the qualifying criteria of the DD-214. So we encourage, if your mom or dad has passed away from a service-connected Agent Orange disease, contact our office because we'd like to recognize them also. The Old Colony Memorial has been highlighting Vietnam veterans every week and their personal experience. If anyone's interested in having their story told in the OCM, they could contact us and we'll coordinate an interview. Brian, how do you feel that people can get involved with this if they want to be involved?
In terms of supporting the event?
Yes.
Well, I would hope, we have been putting a little notice in the Old Colony Memorial.
Correct.
Pretty much on a weekly basis.
Right.
Encouraging support from local businesses, individuals, organizations, whatever. Certainly, we can always use financial contributions, and you can discuss where that should go. I know it's supposed to be earmarked to the fund at your office.
That's correct.
Why don't you mention that?
Sure. Well, our gift account was established several years ago with a local business that made a fairly large donation to help veterans, maybe with a tank of oil or glasses or prescriptions. So we've kind of kept that gift account going. And now we have the donations for the Vietnam ceremony come to that account, especially earmarked for that. Because if we get a huge donation and we pay for the challenge coins and we have a ceremony and we do everything that we want to do for this ceremony and we have extra money, we can just roll it over to help Vietnam veterans families or veterans families in whatever the group decides will happen with the majority of the money, if there's money left over.
And money's just one thing.
Right.
We're also looking for any food support that we can get for the collation.
Right.
We're planning on having a collation for the Vietnam veterans and their families after the event upstairs in the Blue Room at the
That's
Memorial
correct.
Hall. And then any other kind of support in terms of, we'll need help perhaps in setting up or taking down in the Blue Room. We have a replica Huey that's going to be on display, a Huey helicopter,
Right.
which is going to be on display outside of Memorial Hall. We're going to need to provide pretty much 24-hour security for that, just to make sure nobody vandalizes it or whatever during the
Right.
evening when it's there. So we can use some support and some volunteers in that regard. And I'm sure that all of those volunteer efforts can be worked through your office.
Absolutely. And speaking of the Huey, I believe the permits have been pulled so that the Huey is going to make its appearance in the July 4th parade to kind of get people thinking forward about the Vietnam event. So
To pick up on that, I think the Huey, if we say Huey, some folks are going to think,
Right.
who's
What?
Huey?
Huey helicopter.
Huey was a helicopter, and helicopters in Vietnam were probably the most significant piece of equipment.
Were they like a lifeline to you
oh, yeah.
guys?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, right?
And the whop, whop, whop of the blades. Today, you can be swimming in fresh pond or not so fresh pond, whatever they call it, with your granddaughter, and you hear a helicopter going over with that whop, whop, whop of the blades, and you're right back there
Doesn't
again.
stop you in your tracks.
Yeah, so the Huey is so representative of that particular conflict. I think, when you think of armored cav and you think of the cavalry from previous conflicts, in the 1800s or whatever, they were rode on horseback. But now the cav was delivered by helicopter. So the helicopter is such a key reminder of that Vietnam conflict.
Was the helicopter also like to take the injured out, or how were they transported? Was that part of it?
Yeah, the helicopter, I mean, when you think of the different purposes of the helicopter, suppression fire, bringing in additional troops, bringing in supplies, taking out the wounded, taking out the dead.
Right.
The helicopter just has so many significant reminders, whether it be the relief of leaving an area, the fear and anxiety as you arrive in an LZ, the thrill in your heart when you hear that support coming.
Right.
If your position was being overrun and you come in with a helicopter and provide that suppression fire, all of that. So the helicopter it's such a reminder of the Vietnam conflict.
And on that note, we the Hueys, or the Huey helicopter, will be on display for viewing only. It's not really a
Correct.
get on and
Correct.
walk through type display, but it will be there for viewing. And like I said, it will be at the July 4th parade to kind of give a pre look at what we're going to be trying to get together for this event. What else can we tell the folks about this
Well, I think
ceremony?
in addition to the Huey, one of our group members, Harry Titus, Vietnam veteran,
Right.
did such an excellent job recently in decorating Memorial Hall.
Right.
The campaign ribbon, he has a replica of the challenge coin, both sides,
Right.
with the ribbons. He has the banner out front with the names of those from Plymouth who we lost.
Right.
When Memorial Day came, it was it was a typical
It was rainy.
holiday, pouring rain, right? So we ended up going to Memorial Hall. But I think the thing that really surprised me was, one, the number of people who came out in that deluge to pay honor to the fallen, and to have the banner there so
was
that it was
beautiful.
clear who the four folks who sacrificed their lives during the Vietnam conflict, and everyone could see that as they were going into the Memorial Hall. Plus, thanks to, is it Bob Davidson?
Yes.
Who's done such a great job.
With the Hall of Flags.
Yeah, he's got the Hall of Flags, he's got the mannequins, he's got the museum pieces in the
American
back,
Legion Museum,
which,
right.
which covers all the conflicts to include Vietnam. And he has the commemorative partnership program, the flag,
right.
hanging in the hall too. So I think Plymouth's really done a good job. We're not quite there yet. Hopefully it'll all come to fruition on Veterans Day this November, but we're certainly making progress.
So I'm guessing if anyone out there is interested in being a part of this, you don't have to be a veteran to be part of this. If you just want to, we're going to be looking for a lot of support in several different avenues as far as setting up, taking down, serving lunch, just giving the Vietnam veterans the their due that day. So if anyone's interested, I would encourage you to call my office at 508-747-1620, extension 172 or 173. In closing, Brian, what is the message, I guess, that we really want to get out there as far as, I mean, honoring them, obviously. I think that presenting this honor while so many are still alive is important. And honoring the ones that have passed is obviously important. But what is your hope, I guess, is your grand hope for this day? And not just this particular day, but moving forward for not only Vietnam veterans, but veterans of all the wars, really.
Well, you know, even today, we have, the public has different opinions as to the conflicts that we're involved in. You know, a lot of folks talk about, well, we don't want boots on the ground in the Middle East. A lot of folks would prefer to see the use of drones. Some folks are in favor of our Middle East policy, some folks aren't. The key point is, and I think the key thing that will come from this welcome home, is regardless of the conflict, you've got to honor the warrior. There are warriors. Doesn't matter what our particular political bent is. Those folks have signed on the line. They've dotted line. They've taken an oath to defend this country. Every single person who joins the military makes a commitment to potentially make the ultimate sacrifice.
Absolutely.
Some have made that ultimate sacrifice. Some have given all. All have given some. So, in my case, I'm 70 years old. Most of my contemporaries who served in that conflict were coming to the downhill slope, one might say. So to have this opportunity, to have someone shake our hand, thank us for our service, truly welcome us home after all these years is just very, very meaningful, very, very significant. In addition to that, I think that we, in doing this, establish for all veterans the respect that they deserve for their service.
So let me ask you this. You lived through this. What do you think your experience compared to the young men and women coming home today? What's the difference?
Well, I think for the most part, America has realized that they made a mistake. Not so much in criticizing the war, but in the process of doing that, when they denigrated their veterans, I think they recognized they made a mistake. And so today, we look at our young men and women who serve, and regardless of how we might feel about the particular conflict, we recognize that they're making a sacrifice for us. We enjoy our freedoms. We have our 4th of July and our
Sure.
fireworks and our
Right.
cookouts and everything. We have those freedoms because of these young men and women who are still willing to put their lives on the line today. So for me as a Vietnam veteran, whether I got treated poorly when I came home, and I did, it doesn't matter. I want to see these young folks today get the respect that they deserve. So if in fact we kind of paid the price after Vietnam that resulted in the respect that these veterans today are getting and deservedly are receiving, then it was worth it.
Right. It's not a perfect world, I don't think, them coming home now, but it certainly is a lot better.
Yeah.
A lot more services in place, the stand downs, they know where they can go if they need things. People doing the compensations right out of the service instead of the veteran not knowing where to go or where to turn for help. So I think that's important, and I think they're still getting 5 years of VA health care. So the benefits are out there for our veterans. And that, to go off on another little tangent, for any veteran that's returning home, if you know a veteran, direct them to their veteran service officer. Every town in Massachusetts has one, and we have the resources that can help either integrate these folks that are returning back or get them the services that they need. And we also can help them file compensations, get them enrolled in VA healthcare, get them enrolled in school, whatever they want, we can help them do it. So I think that's critical that they have, they know where to go for their benefits, because I think that's part of it, is just being set loose and not knowing what to do or where to go.
Absolutely. You, when you get out of the service, you know, you're interested in making that transition back to civilian life.
Right.
And a lot of times you're not aware of the veterans benefits. So it's very helpful to have a Veteran Services office or a veterans office to go to kind of help make you aware of what can the VA offer you, what benefits do you have,
Right.
both educationally and your home. I mean, even the tax benefit you get on your real estate tax every year.
Right,
as a
everything.
veteran. It's really helpful.
Well, Brian, first of all, let me say welcome home, and thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I enjoy partnering with you on this.
Thanks,
And
Roxanne.
I hope for a very successful event. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.